Welcome to Super Geek Star Trek Discovery Reaction and Review Show. My name is George. Now, we have a special guest today, but before I introduce him, I want to say hi to Carlos Pedraza. How you doing, Carlos?
Glad to be back.
Sean, how are you doing? Are you wearing pants?
Of course not, but I'm here.
Cool. And Raul, how you doing?
I am also not wearing pants.
Yeah. Oh, Sean, you're starting a trend.
Team no pants.
I'm at least going to do that Thanksgiving thing where I unbuckle my belt and my pants.
It's a very comfortable coat, I'll have you know.
I'm telling you.
All right. And joining us is a special guest. He is author of Star Trek books. That would be Mr. Dave Galanter. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you very much. I am wearing pants. My family and my neighbors require it.
You don't want to traumatize your kids. I can understand that. Sean, you should take notes.
Actually, I'm pantless because it's the other way around for me.
Well, we always say he doesn't wear pants.
I'm sure the people really are more interested in hearing what we think about the latest Discovery episode.
I was about to say. All right. Well, this was the episode we're covering today is Season 2, Episode 3, which was called Point of Light. And let me start with our guest, Dave. Dave, your general thoughts and feelings about this episode.
I loved this episode. I thought a lot happened. It certainly wasn't filler. And there was a lot of meaty feelings to it. I loved Tilly almost having a mental breakdown. And I loved what was happening between Amanda and Burnham. And I am more in love with Saru every day.
I agree with all that. What did you think, Carlos?
I agree with Dave. I thought it was a great episode. I've read some reports with people who had some issues with its pacing. I didn't have those issues myself. I was glad to see the side of Amanda we have never seen before. It was refreshing and it worked. It didn't feel like it came out of nowhere, even though it kind of did, but it made sense given what we know about her, but we've just never seen it on
the Mama Bear
on screen before.
That's my impression. That she was being on Mama Bear mode.
Yeah,
well, not just her Mama Bear mode, but the fact that she has regrets.
Oh, right, about how she couldn't give.
Deep regrets. Yeah, when we get to that, I've got a whole theory.
Well, if you want to take a look at the episode from this angle, the entire episode is about motherhood and mothering and nurturing, whether it be an empire or whether it be a person.
Oh, that's a good observation.
Yeah, it's about family and subverting expectations. Well, no, that's Last Jedi. I'm sorry, never mind.
Ooh.
But no, I agree.
John gets a big boo for that.
A big pants boo. But
big pants, big. You're gonna have to wear pants next time.
Yeah, before we get to Carlos,
that's your punishment.
Before we get to Carlos' theory, what did you think, Sean? Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I was amazed that they were able to squeeze as much into this episode and do it well. That they did. I mean, that was I felt there was a very big problem with last season was how much you were trying to squeeze into each episode, yet it didn't seem satisfying in a lot of a lot of the episodes of the first season. I felt like at the end of them, I was like, that's it. I didn't feel that way at the end of this at all. In fact, I was just pointing out that I had a really long night when it premiered on Thursday, and I went on the couch and I turned it on, and I fell asleep 3/4 of the way through it. That says something about the episode. I was just tired. So I went and I picked it back up about an hour before we're talking here, and I'm like, oh my God, the last 10, 15 minutes of this were flipping amazing. I missed the best parts, but taking everything together, I mean, there was so much going on in this episode. It was really, really... I thought it was really well done. I'm more impressed with this season as it goes along. We had very little Pike this episode, and you know how much I love Pike, but it was fine.
But it was critical Pike.
Yeah, it was what now?
Yeah, critical.
Critical.
Yeah, yes, and the Tilly scenes, we're getting some answers on what's going on with her and her vision, and I kind of really appreciate the end of it here when they're sucking that alien out, and I think we're all thinking the same thing. It's an alien life form asking for help. You gotta help it. because that's what Star Trek fans
that's
do.
my Tilly problem of the week is why don't you just ask her what she wants?
Well, right, but that again, I think we're back to this is our Tilly, who's she's young and impulsive, and sometimes and
Well, sure, but once the problem expands to include Stamets and Burnham, I expected a little bit more objectivity.
Behavior.
Well, I mean, when you got an alien, right? She was terrified. I mean, when you got an alien in you and you think you're hallucinating, and it's just nonstop pounding your synapses like this, I'm not really surprised, I guess. But I think next week we're going to see. I bet you Tilly's the first one that gets out there and says, "No, we need to help. We need to help her. We need to help this alien." I'm guessing on that. But the scenes at the end, the Giorgio scenes, were amazing. I mean, I have not been a fan of Giorgio to begin with, but I felt that Mycelial Yeoh, actually, this is the best she's ever played the character, was in this episode out of the entire last season.
And let's face it, this is definitely an unofficial backdoor pilot for that section.
Yeah, I think that she was quite happy with her future prospects in Star Trek. So yes, perhaps that's the reason she performed above par.
Well, maybe it's that, and I think the writing's better. I mean,
Yep, the directing, the writing. Also, they know that they're going to be making this into a series, so they were trying to.
I'm not sure we knew that when this was shot. However,
that's a good point. Hadn't been confirmed, probably.
But they may have. Might not have known it, but they may have.
Maybe. They may not have decided until after the episode was done.
That's
though.
true.
This is only the third one. So, yeah, I mean, this was probably shot in late April, early May of last year. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
By the way, her making goo eyes at the baby.
That was my favorite moment.
That was everything.
And then when he looked at her, she stopped, because she almost got caught being sweet and nice.
Right.
That was pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that I have not been a fan of the idea of Space Hitler getting her own series, but I mean, after her performance, mind you, she wasn't even in that much, but I thought it was so well done that she's making me change my mind very quickly.
Yeah, it seems like. I was surprised at how quick and easy she gave in to Burnham at the end when she wanted to blow up the Klingon homeworld. I think that Burnham has an effect on her. It's obvious. Then she rubbed off to him. She kind of reminds me of how Lucy Lawless's character of Xena, how Hercules influenced her from being a bad guy. If anyone watched that back in the day, it was very similar to how she became on. I don't know if she's on the road to redemption or meeting in the middle, sort of like.
Well, I think she's certainly.
You're
pragmatic.
a Xena geek. Forget it. I'm off the show.
She's an anti-hero, and I think she'll stay that way. I think what you're going to see in the series when it comes, they've already hinted that it's going to be. I think it's going to be an ensemble show, and I think it will focus on the misfits that are collected as part of Section 31.
Agreed.
So I think obviously she will be the star, but you're going to see this as a true ensemble that focuses on what makes up Section 31 and what makes them work
because her recruiter is clearly the captain of this group.
Oh boy, Star Trek Suicide Squad, here we come.
Pretty much, yep. Her handler, whatever you want to call him, her recruiter, he definitely was calling the shots on that ship. So, but she was going along with it. But I think Carlos is right. I think it's an ensemble thing. Like they don't. It's not so much a structure as they're not Starfleet. And I'm a little irritated by how you pull out the black badge and we're a secret group. This is what we are, and they just just throw that out there.
Well, because it's a group that's talked about mostly in shadows in the universe. It's not.
But everyone seems to know about it.
Yeah,
right.
And in the commercials, you see Pike knowing about it. Like he sees Giorgio's badge in one of the upcoming.
I have a theory
Pike is
about
a captain.
Okay.
I would assume that he would know about it.
Just because in DS9 times it's a secret group does not mean it was always a secret group.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Exactly.
And I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, it might be part of Starfleet now, but it's not in the DS9 future. So something happens here, or something has happened previously, and maybe it goes in and out.
I thought her recruiter had said in that scene when she got recruited something about how they aren't Starfleet, but I could be wrong. I could be misremembering that.
He
Well,
called
they have
something
Starfleet badges,
control.
so I
Right,
mean
right.
they're deeply they deeply overlap with Starfleet. Here's my theory. My theory is that they are in some way currently in Discovery's time more officially attached to Starfleet. My prediction is that, kind of dovetailing on what Dave mentioned, I think something happens in between the 23rd and
They go too
the
far.
24th centuries where it looks like Section 31 is defeated and disbanded, and then but it really has retreated into the shadows.
Right, because they become too noticed by the Federation Council, and they, yeah. I think you might be right.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how. Kittimer Accords. That's how. That's what happened.
What do we think of that?
No, seriously, no. This is my theory on this: is that they're at time of the Kittimer Accords. This piece in our time that it was felt. This is just obviously dumb fan theory, but that it was felt that their presence was no longer needed. We're embarking on a new era of peace. And so there's political pressure for them to disband. They do, and whoops, we need them again. So that's just where I'm going with that.
Or they just didn't take no for an answer. And so, Raul, what did you think of the episode? What are your overall thoughts?
Well, I already stated that I thought it was about motherhood mostly, and the effects of rearing either an empire or a family. And to be honest with you, the show did pack quite a bit into the 45, 50 minutes of it. It was incredible. I was very impressed. It felt like a DS9 episode, like a high quality DS9 episode. To be honest.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree with you.
You know what? A lot of people I didn't notice until it was pointed out on other podcasts, but people get geeky enough to freeze everything and show. They went out of their way during that Batleth fight or sword fight, Batleth sword, whatever it was, to show that some of the Klingons bled red and some of them bled pink.
I saw that.
That was interesting.
That was great. I loved it.
It was their way of saying it wasn't that we made a mistake in other episodes. It's some of them have red blood. It was kind of weird, but I thought it was. Did you notice that, Dave?
I noticed it, and I thought it was very cool. And I got to say that fight was really well choreographed too.
Yeah,
very well choreographed.
Yeah, that was a fun fight.
And not like that, it reminded me about what I always hated about the B&B era Trek, TNG era Trek, and that is that for all this violence that the Klingons inflict upon these swords with these swords and edged weapons, there's never any blood. I mean, it's
it was a syndicated TV show in the 80s and 90s.
I get that, but it was.
I mean, the Highlanders syndicated TV show chopped off heads, and there was never blood.
Yeah, I know, but it's nice to see this level of at least attempt at realism here on this. They didn't pull any punches. It certainly had an impact.
Well, and let me make a quick comment. There's been a lot of negative rebuke of the Klingons being different looking or different seeming, and this episode I think showed that not only are they more, I would say, tribal and gripping in their presentation, but this episode with all the violence actually showed why they are like that, because this was common throughout the House's era.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing that caught my attention was the song and dance that Laurel put on at the end with the Houses. That reminded me. That was like straight out of the 24th century.
You know where that comes from? That does not come from the 24th century. It comes from the 17th century. What you saw was the Klingon version of Queen Elizabeth I.
Yes, there you go.
That's why she never married. That's why, she saw herself as the mother of the country. She's the one who brought peace amongst very warring houses in England at the time. So I think that's where they reached back for that
right,
example.
The motivation for that, I agree. But what I was getting at more of was the style of the political show she put on, the story. That was very reminiscent of, if I recall, I think it's Sins of the Father, from TNG, where they created this whole story around Duras and
Laurel.
the and
No, Lursa
no.
and Kalis.
Kalis, what? No, we've got we have the Duras family, and then we have
never mind. I thought you were talking about the romance between Lursa.
No, not the romance. No, this story which painted Moog as a traitor when it wasn't, and they did this for political purpose. They contrived this political story to keep the empire together so it wouldn't fracture, which is pretty much exactly what she did with this story that she created. Laurel did in the story she created at the end of this episode. And I was like, well, that's a nice throwback.
I thought it was interesting that they showed. I like that they tried to make the attempt to, show some like threads for canon where Tyler seems to be, trying to get them to build the D7. But I think it would have been better if it wasn't a Katinga that they were actually showing. But it's a minor little geek thing, But still, it was a nice attempt.
Sir, your pocket protector is showing.
No, I saw so many people complaining about it on other forums.
The D7s and the Katingas were virtually the same.
Virtually identical.
One was retconned to the other. It's the same. The only real deserved nitpick is that they referred to a D7 in season 1 to a totally different ship. So that is a well-deserved nitpick. But the other one it doesn't hold any water for me.
D7 2.0? I don't know.
Maybe.
Seriously, you can just you just brush it off. It's a nitpick.
I'll tell you, it's easy to resolve. Wasn't it the Federation who called it a D7, and their intelligence might have been mistaken?
Oh, sure. I think that's a good retcon, Dave.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I do this professionally.
You should write a story about it, Dave.
That I actually don't like to do. I don't like to go into the minutia in any of my books.
I love that.
Hard.
Yeah, no. I love that the little drone that Giorgio used to fight with, like did the fighting for her. But that's real. That's a cool for all the fans that always bitch about they didn't have this kind of technology because it was made in the 60s. But if you're going by today's standards, even if you're retconning, it's a perfectly logical step that they would have drone supports. Aren't those? They had those with them too when they went in the first episode down to that where Tig Notaro's character Jet Reno was. When they went down there, they had these drones moving, going ahead.
Those were not official Starfleet drones. Those were drones that were invented by the engineer on the highway.
Look, the show has to look futuristic.
Right.
And the reason that a show made 50 years ago looks dated is because it is.
It was
and in 50 years from now, Star Trek Discovery is going to look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And this is what you have to. I'm really done with the arguments about how it doesn't look like TOS did. Okay, I don't give a shit. Okay, period. I'm done with this argument. Let's move on.
You just reminded me, Sean. You remember that point that was made when somebody, the Starbase guy, was talking to Pike on a screen instead of the newfangled holographic way?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Thought that was an interesting slip in there. I don't know if there was something about that. Now, it
was intentional, of course. I mean, it was
right, but was it like a nod and a wink
right.
to say, this is an old-fashioned way of doing things, but yet that's the way they do it in the future. But
I'm gonna guess it's probably more to do with it's a lot cheaper to do that than it is to make that little holographic.
I remember a long time ago I made a prediction that it could be what they end up doing. It's probably not going to be the case because they don't really have to explain it. But for all we know, the further they expand out into space, it could just be that the holographic projection technology just isn't. The range just isn't efficient compared to an old.
Or it's just not. It's like Google Glass. I mean, that was supposed to be the next big thing, and it's off the market a year after it's out. I mean, it comes down to this, really. I mean, people compare it to, they didn't have that till DS9. Yeah, but DS9, that was a totally different thing. That was putting the guy on your bridge. I mean, that's what that did. That's
and it was that was like it was new at the time, but it was the same.
Right.
Well, for my part, I don't find trying to retcon the technology differences to be a very productive use of time, because it's just they're all in on this. I
Right.
mean,
Right, exactly.
I can
you
live
mean, you
without
can.
the exposition. I'm just saying maybe, it could be something that they might use as a plot thing.
I think it's a fig leaf. I think it's fine, or maybe an olive branch, whichever plant metaphor
Yeah, I
you
think
want to use.
okay.
It's that,
Yeah, I'll go with
and
that.
no more.
Consider
Fine.
it also how good of a storytelling device it was when we had Burnham on one side of her quarters and Tyler on the other, essentially joined in a room and yet apart. I thought
I
that
love the
was
color
a fantastic
swaps.
visual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
you know
was a
what?
that was a
It
beautiful
was
beautiful
the
shot.
tale of two worlds.
Well,
So
it was very similar, and Carlos was the one that pointed this out when we did a Doctor Who New Year's Day special review. They did this almost the same. They didn't copy it because they probably hadn't seen it when they made this episode, but they did the similar thing where when the Doctor was talking holographically to the Dalek that was occupying the human girl, they did the color swap where when it was the Dalek talking, it was like a orangish thing, or maybe it was the other way around. It was blue hologram, and then all of a sudden it became a colored one when it was the girl. Didn't that remind you of that, Carlos, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think inventive. I know that Kurtzman has commanded his episode directors to think very creatively and very cinematically about how they're framing shots, how they're shooting coverage for these scenes.
Yeah.
He wants it to feel like they're spending money on it, which means not your typical television type coverage, which is wide,
Static,
The
flat.
medium,
cinematography has
close.
been very noticeably better this season.
Yeah, and I think this is an example where you're seeing that happen again.
I agree. Okay, so going back to what Dave pointed out earlier in the discussion, I almost had forgotten myself. I was going to make a note of this. I think it's one of the underpraised things about this episode is and you mentioned it too, Carlos, was her performance, was Amanda. Mia Kirshner's performance as Amanda, the Mama Bear mode, her taking this initiative to find out what's going on, the mystery that we're starting to get a little part of another part of Spock's arc about did he murder people on that starbase, or is there a cover-up of some kind? Something's going on, and that should be interesting when we start seeing that resolve. I actually thought we were going to start seeing Spock sooner than this, but it's okay. I'm fine with the pace.
No, I think it's good they're taking their time with it. I think that's great.
Better for the big reveal. I agree.
Yeah. My theory, by the way, is...
Oh, yeah, what's your theory?
My theory, by the way, about why Spock has been set up like this, totally Section 31. They have their own interests in the security of the Federation, the galaxy.
Oh, they need a scapegoat.
And they're not trying to scapegoat him. They're just trying to get him out of Starbase 5's psychiatric facility. And so they've concocted this story in order to have him, quote unquote, escape, but really for them to be able to find out what he knows.
That makes total sense because Spock seems to definitely be in the loop, and they would know because if they have people watching him, they would see all the things he's saying and proclaiming about the Red Angel, and then lining things up. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, the interaction with Burnham and Amanda was amazing, and it was very touching. It was very lovely, and the moment that I knew what she was going to say about. I just knew she was going to say that when she talked about all the love that the affection she showed for Burnham, and it's like I finished the sentence. I was like, but she couldn't show it for Spock, and because I saw where this was all leading up to, and it's just you could really see
she wanted to, but Sarek discouraged her from doing it because it would weaken his position.
I don't even think it's so much Sarek.
I don't think it's Sarek either.
It was Vulcan.
Oh, you think
culture.
she thought it'd be a better idea so he would not like?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. That's why she feels so bad.
It's an issue of the Vulcan culture that she chose to live in. I mean, this would be like raising.
You had apparently these logic extremists.
Yeah.
She felt she was protecting her son.
He would get bullied more if he showed any emotion.
If you
not bullied, he might get killed like Burnham almost was.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you're a Westerner and you marry someone of Middle Eastern descent in a Muslim country, well, you better subscribe to the culture that you're in. I mean, you don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where I think she was at. But what caught my attention was in that whole interview it was near the very end where Burnham wouldn't tell her exactly what she did to cause this rift between her and Spock, just telling her how horrible it is. It's like Amanda knows, and it's like when she says, "I'll find him." It's kind of It's like I could be wrong. Did I pick up that she was angry at Burnham?
Oh, she's pissed. My wife pointed out that kiss on the cheek and that "I'll find him" was Amanda basically saying, "I love you. We're going to have many words later."
Yeah, but I'm taking care of this.
Like,
She was, let's face it,
like that.
She was badass. Amanda was badass for the
Absolutely.
first time on screen in Star Trek history, and I thought it was great.
Yep. She wasn't a mamby-pamby, to say the least, or just
By the way, what a screwed up family this is.
Oh my
God! Oh man,
yes.
yes.
When you put Cybok into the picture, the later.
Well, I'm fucking forgetting Cybok.
I know
he wasn't even there. That was another mother, if we even acknowledge it as canon. But apart from that, I have so many Cybok issues.
I know. I remember you writing about this one.
But I think what we saw for the first time, really, in Star Trek was we got an inside look at the psychology around Spock being half human in a way we've never gotten before. We've always looked at it in terms of, he's suppressing his emotions and he's choosing the Vulcan side, etc. But what we learned here for the first time was her fear. And this is borne out by the medical report that we saw from the Starbase 5 psychiatric unit. Her fear that she actually was raising a psychopath because of the way that she kept her own emotions from him. That's serious shit, you guys.
Yeah, it's very.
You end up being like that Vulcan who had the PTSD on Deep Space Nine, sniping people.
Well, yeah.
For some reason, I don't remember that episode.
The one with the rifle that could fire the bullet that teleported, and the Vulcan guy that was going nuts.
Season 7, Field of Fire is the name of the episode.
I will. Yeah, I'll do a rewatch. Thanks, guys.
It's an Esri Das episode.
Yeah, Esri had to investigate this Vulcan troop member was because he's a Vulcan. You can't tell just why he was having the equivalent of Vulcan PTSD, and he was using an experimental new weapon that fired a bullet that actually used a mini transporter to beam itself instantly in front of a target when you lock onto them and kills them.
She didn't know he was She didn't know he was a Vulcan at the time. It started with somebody with an ensign that she had been partying with the night before, who wound up with a bullet in his chest the next morning, and he was the only one in this room. That's basically the story. She made the investigation, and it was a Vulcan. It turned out to be a Vulcan that had just lost his marbles.
And being a Vulcan, because they suppress all those emotions, it was more powerful.
Yeah, but even, I mean, this was different from that because there you're dealing with the full Vulcan. Vulcans have their own completely different kind of psychology than humans do. They, just because, I mean, PTSD is a human thing. How Vulcans deal with trauma may be their own thing, and obviously this was a metaphor for that in DS9. But really, it's not just an alien culture. They have a different brain, a completely different kind of brain.
Correct.
And it means they process experiences differently than humans do. So what was significant about this was it was dealing with the specific effects on him being half human and being raised not just in Vulcan culture, but by a human mother who actively suppressed her own emotions, and that may have had a serious deleterious effect on her son.
Disassociation thing, yeah. I mean, it'd be more powerful in a Vulcan if you think about it, because they have more. I think it was I can't remember who it was that said it. Maybe it was T'Pol, but they have more powerful emotions than a human. It's just they suppress them. But if they were to get unleashed, you get crazy person. So,
well, yeah, but and here's the thing: is that
Amanda? That's what you
right? Yeah, Amanda went into Amanda went into it with the trying to treat him as a Vulcan when he wasn't a Vulcan. He was a half Vulcan, half human, and that's, I think, where we're seeing the problem. Dave, you were going to say something.
I was going to say that apparently Vulcan telepathy has something to do with them managing their emotions, because 430 Vulcans died on the Intrepid. Spock felt it. They go
True.
back. He goes back 5,000 years in time. Doesn't have the collective telepathy of Vulcan to help him, and starts losing it and becoming over emotional. So,
Becomes a
also,
meat eater.
and perhaps as a half Vulcan, he has more problems with this telepathy than others might.
Maybe. I mean, there's a
Very good
whole
point.
thing about. I mean, the Vulcans are touch telepaths. They're not just regular telepaths. For them, touch is an important part of how their telepathy works. And what's interesting about that, I think, is that touch is also a very intimate act.
Right.
Very taboo
As
thing
you
for
see,
them.
when they are intimate with each other, it's
very
all about how
gentle.
they touch each other.
Yeah, the fingers.
So
They also listen to Enya. I think that's important.
I really think that is a key thing. I
you
do.
win the internet today, Raul.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know how they have the key to the city with the mayors? You know, they're going to have the key to the internet for you, Raul.
Ooh.
I mean,
At
look,
least the porn sites.
they've they've mentioned before that the Vulcans they're not very fond of physical contact. And in fact, if you just look at First Contact, the movie First Contact, you know the look on the Vulcan that makes first contact with Cochrane, the look on his face when Cochrane's sticking out his hand to shake his hand, he reluctantly does it.
Yeah.
But he's not really comfortable with it. And in fact, you see that reluctance when they're towards the end, when they're kind of panning out with the camera.
Well, he
And
was
they're-
right.
and
I don't
Cochrane
remember
pulls out
where
a
it was
shotgun and
they-
shoots him.
I don't remember. Well, yeah, in the mirror universe.
Right.
This may have been from a novel, or it may have been from one of the shows. Maybe some of you remember this. But one Vulcan talked about touch and said that an unprepared Vulcan who touches a human can actually feel physical pain from the roiling emotions inside a human. So that's why they're so reluctant to do it without going
not
through
just
some
that.
mental preparation.
When Vorik went through his pawn far, he inadvertently affected B'Elanna with a touch. He gave her the plaque tau. It was it was like a telepathic STD kind of through touch.
Bomb, chicka, wow, wow.
Yeah.
I thought the plaque tau was a kind of soup.
Well,
I'm kidding.
That's
I'm kidding. That's
Plomeek.
Plomeek. I just,
that's Plo something else. I know.
Plomeek. It's Plomeek.
Yeah.
See, Star Trek nerd makes Star Trek joke, and we all jump on him for it, being Star Trek nerds that we all are.
Yeah.
We're pathetic.
I call it the finger kiss when they do the little finger rub, but you're right, Sean. They do they don't get into the whole let's go crazy and grab and sweat together unless they're in plaque tau. I'm pretty sure they do when they're in plaque tau. But anyways.
You're getting me a little aroused here, George.
What else is new? You got no pants on. It's pretty easy.
That is true.
It's bound, a stray breeze could do that.
Doesn't
right.
take much.
Not even a stray.
We haven't talked about that ship. I call it the Federation Bird of Prey. I wasn't very clear if that was actually cloaked or just camouflage technology, because you didn't actually see it uncloaked.
I think it was camouflaged.
I think it was too.
But also, remember that when you see it as the Bird of Prey, you're actually looking at it upside down. That was a Dutch angle that was done.
I actually don't know. I actually watched the episode twice, and
I did too.
When they were zooming in, they didn't go through.
They rotate the camera.
Model. They rotate the camera. It was like a cut instead of a. Was it a rotate?
No, they
rotated the camera from the outside, but what I'm saying is they didn't clearly establish that it was upside down because it did a cut to the bridge after that. So I don't know.
Well, there is no upside down in space. Number one.
That's true.
But the point is that
maybe it rotates. We don't know.
I think the only upside down bridge we've seen was the Shenzhou, wasn't it? But basically, in other starships, the bridge is at the top. So that's why it started at the bottom. The camera rotated, and you see the bridge appear on the top. Plus the nacelles folded down as well, right?
They did, yes.
Is that better, you guys?
It also looks smaller than a starship to me. That looked like a very small vessel.
Yeah, it looked
Yeah,
like
it looked
it
small.
was bridge and engines, and kind of that was it, and maybe a shuttle bay. The way they went with the camera, it just went right into the bridge. It didn't. It looked like it was for very limited purpose there. And I will say this about this. I am they did a decent job of humanizing Section 31, I think, probably for the first time. I've always been the kind of guy, I actually, following Section 31 from DS9 forward, I actually like the idea of Section 31 in general. I think it's their mission is very complex. I think they do things in the best interest of the Federation, even though they go about it the wrong way. The attitude of the officer on Deep Space Nine was like, these guys are just fucking evil. And I never really got that from the organization. But this kind of, I thought this at the end kind of humanized them because basically they're like, Giorgio's like, hey, look, all right, here's the thing, you got a choice. And then we realized, well, we figured out a way to make, or you don't have a choice. Well, they figured out a way. Giorgio could have just zapped them both right there and said, fuck it, you're on your own. Go take care of this. But she didn't. What they did, they came up with a better plan. And they, Section 31 lived up to their end, and they got the baby and Ash away from the Klingon Empire. And they didn't have to do that. They could have just gone all and just all KGB and just assassinated them.
Actually,
but they didn't do that.
It's in their best interest for maintaining the peace.
Yeah, exactly. They need L'Rell.
They need L'Rell to be safe, and Tyler as a recruit is the best logical thing because he's got an influence on her.
Okay, but the baby is pointless. Okay, to them. If these guys were really as bad as they've been portrayed,
I don't think Section 31 is bad. They were the villain in those particular sets of episodes on Deep Space Nine, but they exist for a reason. And while they exist in contravention to a lot of principles, they serve functions, and they may be morally ambiguous, but they have a reason for it.
Special intelligence agency. They have a bad reputation because they do bad things. The Mossad does terrible things. However, they protect their country. Isn't that what the point of
yes, it is exactly.
Right, and I agree with that. And what I'm really getting at here more is I think that the producers did an excellent job of painting a more sympathetic side, even empathetic side, to Section 31. Because, like you said, they could have just gone all secret police and just and said, you know what, that baby is going to be a liability as long as it lives. It cannot live, and they didn't do that. So I like that angle. It's something I picked up.
They had the resources to make a.
It's likely if they had killed the baby, they would not have maintained the relationship with both L'Rell and Tyler that they needed long term.
By keeping
so that's why they didn't do that.
Starfleet.
This goes to the understanding that they're a pragmatic organization. Okay, it's not all black and white to them. Again, they're complex.
Correct. It's completely pragmatic.
It's making me really appreciate more. I mean, look, we're talking about like a 2-minute scene. It really has made me appreciate more this idea of a Section 31 series.
Exactly. He was like a backdoor pilot, even though it may be like you said, Carlos. It may not have been intended, but we don't know that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's still nonetheless. I mean, it's. I think it was a nice touch, and it's a great sign for future things to come with that storyline.
And Michelle Yeoh, I saw an interview with her today, and she's pretty excited about what she knows is coming and the evolution of the character that she plays. She says she's trying to roll with it as far as living in this universe. She accepts that she's no longer the top chain of being an empress, but she's open to the idea of exploring new, using her experiences to help. She's not doing it because she wants to be a goody two-shoes, but
she wants to have fun. She wants to have fun.
She wants to have fun. She's like someone that's like retired and says, "I'm bored. I don't want to play golf all day. I want to do something fun." Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather assassinate, chancellors of alien empires. Listen, you guys, if you really are interested on an interesting take on Section 31, I think the best that I've ever seen or heard rather was a fan-produced series several years ago that ran concurrently with Star Trek Hidden Frontier, and in fact our two universes overlapped in a couple of different ways.
Oh yeah, wasn't that an audio thing though?
Yes, it was an audio series called the Section 31 Files, produced by
that. Yep.
Eric Busby, who's in just my neighbor down in Portland, through Darker Projects. They're all still available, I believe, on iTunes and on their website. But it's it's many episodes. I think it's 38 episodes that really explore, same kind of approach. They have a Klingon who's part of it. They have misfits from different parts of the Federation in it. They do some things that are against Starfleet. They do, et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to see how this kind of premise kind of is set up and develops, and this is a great. They're only, I think, a half hour long each, but they're really well done.
Hey George, when you post this to YouTube, make sure to provide a link to that. Track it down and provide a link to it in the.
I've listened to a few of those episodes. I know what he's talking about. It's good.
We'll put a link to it in the description of the video.
Sure.
So that,
their website is darkerprojects.com.
I will do that. I like the political intrigue that they could do in this series. As far as either that one or the one coming. They have a lot of opportunities to, because who knows what Section 31 did, for example, during the Romulan War. They do try to protect everybody. They sometimes it's just that they've always portrayed them as the worst representation of them so far in the movie.
Yeah, I think they. This is kind of my problem. I think the.
You could say the same about Starfleet Admiralty.
That's true.
Sure,
I definitely.
Agree. Without question. I think that's a great point, Dave. I mean, look, I think the intention by whoever came up with the idea. It sounds like an Irish Stephen Bear thing. Whoever came up with the idea for Section 31, I think their intention for Section 31 was far different than what the writers finally did with it, and ultimately. Because it's really a nuanced organization within Starfleet, and it kind of never really has been given that kind of attention. I'm liking it. I'm liking what they're doing now. I like what I saw in the last 2 minutes.
To be honest, the reason it hasn't been given that attention is because probably Gene's overall vision did not include a Section 31.
I get that, but if you look at the later seasons of DS9, I mean, my God, nothing in that was anything close to Gene's vision.
No, but they had to wait. They had to wait till he passed and his acolytes had left the series
They started pushing back against him even during Star Trek 2, though. Even those uniforms, he hated those uniforms because they were too militant, and Hart Bennett ended up saying, "No, we like these."
Gene had absolutely nothing to do with the movies after Star Trek, the motion.
Right, it was more like
correct.
So it wasn't.
They paid him some money. That was basically it.
Yeah, they were just, it was like with Lucas and Disney right now. They'll say, "Hey, what do you think of this, George?" And no matter what he says, they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Well, except they're not paying him
any. Stan Lee was on the movies of Marvel.
Right.
He's listed as an executive producer, which can mean everything and nothing at the same time.
It's an honorary thing they were trying to be. Yeah.
Not always, but in this case, yes.
Yeah.
And he probably did make money from it.
I just remember reading the stories about how he was so against the uniforms in the Wrath of Khan because of the militantness of them, and they were the most popular uniforms to date. So.
And honestly, the reason that a lot of the actors wanted them is because they had guts and it covered their guts.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, they are actually, to this day, they're the most popular uniforms. I love them. I wish they had never,
I think they're probably most popular amongst our fandom for the same reason they were popular among the cast.
Okay, Raul, I think Sean may have won the internet instead. Sorry.
I mean, they always seem to be big hits at the convention. I don't know, man.
Yeah. And so... Yeah, so I don't know. I think that Section 31 is going to be. I mean, it made sense to talk about that because this episode clearly is hinting, or I think the other reason why they gave us so much detail of even in those 2 minutes was, they're giving a hint of how this is going to go down, and I'm loving what I'm seeing.
I'm curious as to how much more Section 31 we're going to see. I mean, I imagine. Based on the way the season's going, it's going to pick up really a lot at the end with Section 31.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as how much it's going to go towards the middle of the season.
In that trailer,
right now.
in the trailer, one of the things I noticed, I had to freeze it because Giorgio does a circle kick on somebody, and it's Burnham. For whatever reason, they get into a fight. She does a martial arts kick to her face, but what?
She had it coming. That's why.
She had it coming.
Here's a question. Here's a gripe I have. Okay, and this is a very bad marketing thing that they did. And this was, at the end of the very first episode, how, and this is like a common thing for these series that run, on streaming services or that they're like the 13 episode series. FX used to. They'll show you what's coming for the entire season. The problem I had with what they did after that first episode was they showed Tyler and Burnham together in uniform on the Discovery, which would have been fine had we not just gone through this big charade with Laurel and holding the two heads. It was completely anticlimactic because we already know.
Which part was anticlimax?
We knew it. Well, the part that was anticlimactic was that there was no mystery in this. We knew that it was. You
seriously thought that when Laurel held up his head that it was his real head? I didn't.
Of course, I didn't because I saw.
Nobody did. It wasn't because I saw a preview. It was because it was obvious that. Otherwise, why would Giorgio have been there?
Okay, what I'm saying is the message that they were trying. Then you know what? It's just crappy writing. That if we all would have known that ahead of time.
Did you guys notice?
You also know that Pike isn't going to die, but when he's in an exciting situation, the thing is, how are we going to see him get out of this?
Yeah.
Not is he going to die?
Yeah. Well, okay. Look, when I knew, from the moment Giorgio says that there is no choice, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I think the casual observer, if they had not seen that little preview at the end of the first episode, may not have been so inclined. I mean, that's what I'm getting at here. And it was kind of it seemed to be an attempt at trying to trick the audience a little bit. Ooh. And we got a mini M. Night Shyamalan moment. Big twist.
Nah.
But there really wasn't a twist.
I don't think so. Oh, did you guys notice, too, that the camera was being very shy to not really zoom in on the baby's head compared to Tyler or anything else? Did you notice that?
Rubber.
Well, no, they were really going out of their way to try to, to not trigger people by not focusing too much on showing the decapitated baby. It was weird.
Right. I bet you're right about that. You don't get too over the top.
I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, decapitated babies are never
oh my
They're
God.
not a big hit at the Emmys, guys.
Right, exactly. They don't usually play well. It's not.
I mean, everybody flipped out seeing Laurel's boobs. So I mean,
Yeah.
What are they going to do about a decapitated baby?
Plastic boobs.
And that was probably the moment she got pregnant too. On top of that, so they can.
I really can't wait to see these action figures. I'm telling you.
Wow. I can't wait to see the memes that people make.
Oh my God.
They're going to make some pretty clever ones, pretty sure.
You'll lose your head. Or never mind.
By the way, I want to bring something up real quick while we have time. Dave, did you notice the design of that war-painted bad guy Klingon was the same look as the albino bad guy in the DS9 episode when they were hunting the albino? Same kind of head, same ridges,
I did not notice that. I must say I am not someone who pays attention to the details.
It just hit me.
I don't think it has anything to do with that guy because he's not descended.
No,
from
I
him.
just think it's interesting.
But the speculation on the internet is that the albino that we see in that DS9 episode is in fact Tyler and Laurel's child growing up.
Yeah, he'd be pretty old, but it's not impossible, I suppose.
Well, he'd be just as old as Core and the others.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
No, he would be younger because he's a baby right now.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, he'd be younger, correct.
So,
but basically contemporary.
Yeah, it's possible.
I liked when there was a fly floating around Core's guts. I thought that was cool. You don't see that side of Star Trek very often.
I don't think they call them flies. I think they call them clies.
Is that really? You're just making that up.
Yes, I'm making that up.
Making it up. Oh my God.
They call them and they say
I saw an argument
with
I wanted
honor.
I want to ask everybody real quick. I saw an interesting argument on one of my threads about a post I made. there's a lot of people saying like that Tilly's awesome, but there's also people saying she's a Mary Sue. And somebody pointed out a Mary Sue doesn't make mistakes, but one of another friend of mine said maybe not a traditional Mary Sue, but in the sense that they do seem to be going out of their way to make her like special on this show. Like everybody's telling her she's special. She keeps pulling off these amazing things. So in a way, that's kind of Mary Sue-ish. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but don't you think that this is a big setup for a betrayal? Basically, she's been shown as the most stalwart believer in everything the Federation stands for. So doesn't that lead you to think that eventually this is going to be what Section 31 comes and visits them for?
I don't know, because they groomed her last year, like when they did. You didn't see this one, Raul, but the mirror version of Tilly was Killy, and she was the captain of the Discovery, through murder and all that stuff. What were you gonna say, Sean?
Well, okay. Here's I'm convinced that she's actually a Gorn, and that she's been fooling all of us.
Maybe she's the Gorn that Kirk takes out.
Captain Kirk is going to fight her. That's going to be awesome.
Exactly.
She's a sleeper Gorn, like Tyler.
And it all comes full circle, gentlemen. So, but no, here's my thing on Tilly. I have, first and foremost, there is only one way to be a Mary Sue, okay? A Mary Sue is very specific, okay? There are not different variations of Mary Sues, okay? Mary Sues make no mistakes. Mary Sues always save the day. That's it, okay? Regardless, she is a character that they've given a lot of attention, but they're making a point, especially in this season, to give a lot of attention to a lot of characters, okay? And it's, even though we have clear leads in this show, and she's part of the main cast, okay? I mean, it's kind of like complaining because, when Worf is given too many scenes, when Data was given too many scenes, too much attention. I don't understand this. I mean, she's a main character of the show. She's gonna get attention.
She's a breakout character too, and I think they're going along with it. So
you know what the problem thing is? She's likable. She's appealing to us because she reminds us of ourselves and how imperfect we all are, and really. She's really, if anything, she's the epitome of what would happen if you put a Star Trek fan on an actual starship. I mean, seriously, with the amount of level of enthusiasm.
Let's be fair, a very intelligent Star Trek fan.
Right? Yeah. Well, I like to give Star Trek fans credit and seem that they all are, even though
they are all the best.
Know.
Kirk was the best. Spock was the best. McCoy was the best. Data was the best. Worf was the best. Picard was the best. Riker was the best. They're all the best.
That's what they do, right? It doesn't mean they're not flawed.
Because they're heroic characters.
Exactly.
So I don't have a problem with her being the best in her thing. I'll tell you, she clearly makes mistakes. She should have gone to sickbay. She was trying to protect herself.
Right.
She should. By the way, next week she should have PTSD. Right. I mean, she just went through a hell of a trauma.
Correct. Yeah. And what I thought was funny about that scene was how Stamets. He's so casual. He doesn't even ask her. He just goes and hooks up and puts that vacuum cleaner up against her chest. And this is just happening. Sorry, it's going to hurt. Boom.
I don't understand how she won that race when she had to stop to talk to Burnham. That was weird.
I thought about that too. It's like, what's going on with that? But, what do we, I mean, this seems like, it's like now people are looking for reasons to criticize the series. I didn't have to look for reasons to criticize the series last season. Okay, there were a lot of flaws with it last season. I had no problem expressing my opinion on them. But I mean, people are going out of their way to do it now. It's like you're
because the stakes are higher. The stakes are higher. Because it's proven them wrong already by surviving into a second season. It's proven them wrong already by having not one, not two, but three very successful episodes. People are talking about it. The buzz about this show is higher than it was in season one. So with the rise in stakes, so comes the vehemence of their
I have to agree with Carlos.
Condemnation.
Because I saw one of the podcasts, I'm not going to name it, but one of the ones that was always anti-Discovery, they backpedaled a little bit and said good things about the first two episodes because they were kind of surprised. But then I noticed with this last one, they seem to go out of their way to find the flaws in it. Like, for example, pointing out that, it's a contingent out of D7. They were going crazy about that, so they were like backpedaling.
Look, okay, here's the thing. It was only called the contingent class as of Star Trek the Motion Picture, okay?
Correct.
That's
Okay.
it. I don't want to hear this D7 nonsense anymore.
Am I allowed to swear in this?
Yeah,
Yes, you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
you are.
hey, Dave, absolutely.
Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
It's not a
Thank you,
documentary.
Dave.
Right.
Yeah.
These are not documentaries. These did not happen. They will not happen. They're never going to happen. It's just creative people telling stories. Shut up with your whatever class it is. All right, I'm done.
Yeah,
That was great.
Dave
That was
said
awesome.
But see,
You know, that's
here-
like
now,
the
here's the
that's
problem
like
with it.
the podcasts you've been hearing about this past week. That boy, they bent over backwards to take a funny little tweet that Anson Mount had tweeted
About
about
being unemployed.
about being unemployed because he was at Pollo Loco with Ethan Peck, and he says,
yeah.
"We're unemployed. We'll work for food." And because and so people spun this into proof, quote unquote, that that Discovery is not going to get a third season.
Well, haven't
And
they
so
wrapped?
basically verb tenses
Yes,
and
they have.
are now proof for verb tenses spoken in a fast food joint are now proof that we're using about network decision making.
Well, I assumed he and Spock would only be in this season because
Yeah,
they
of
have
course.
to be on the Enterprise.
Right. Exactly. And remember that Discovery wrapped up shooting on like December 21st. So yeah, they're done. In the real world today, the series is still running. The second season is still running, but they finished making it back in December.
That's
more than
what
a
I
month
find
ago.
that's what I find so amusing about that is that these people, these rabble rousers on YouTube that claim to have so much inside knowledge and so many inside contacts at CBS and elsewhere, they don't know how the television industry works whatsoever. Not even for the most basic issues, such as when shooting wraps as opposed to when episodes air. It's embarrassing. It really is.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one.
If I may, for just a quick second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to tell you, I realized, because at first when I saw some of the previews and the trailers, I was thinking, boy, Pike is kind of glib. He's kind of, funnier than I thought he would be. And then I realized the only time I've ever seen Pike, when he wasn't just beeping, was when he had been depressed.
Exactly.
Right.
And so
We don't know
this
what
is
he was
the
really
Pike
like.
that is the real Pike. And I love, by the way, that he said to Tilly, let's marry some people who aren't that into each
I
other.
love that. I forgot about
I
that.
love that. That was
What
so
a great
funny.
line.
You, Dave, you just reminded me of a conversation me and Carlos had with a friend of mine named Oren. He said when they saw that first trailer, and he said that Pike says, "Let's have some fun along the way." He said that's not something Pike would say, and I pointed out we don't know he wouldn't say that because we haven't really gotten to know him that well, and this is our opportunity to really get to know him. So, I mean, when we saw him originally, he was at a point in his life where he was burnt out and he was thinking about quitting. And the doctor kind of, and then his experiences in the cage and the menagerie made him kind of have a second, a second win, so to speak.
And the other side of this too is that people don't know this, but he did actually tour the Federation in that wheelchair, doing a stand-up comedy with nothing but beats. So
Not wearing any pants.
not wearing any pants. It doesn't translate nearly as well as you'd think, but still, it was good for a few yucks.
I'm actually
He's a
assuming
funny
that
beeper,
inside
I have to
that
say
he's
that.
not wearing pants.
I saw an interesting interview with Rebecca Romaine, who we're going to see next week as number one, and she actually implied, that she and Pike may have explored a romance after the cage, but said, with that it's not going to work out.
I am skeptical Amoli about
I'm just saying
that.
she really implied it, but
Yep.
we'll see what happens next week. Because they have the Arby's moment, as Son calls it. I wish she was here. Because I kept saying, I want to know what kind of sandwich that is. Or somebody said that, one of you guys. Oh, no, Son said that.
That was you. That was
That was
you.
me. I go, I want to know what kind of sandwich she has in this scene when they're eating in next week's episode. And Son goes, Arby's. I'm like, oh, they got an Arby's on the Discovery. That's cool.
I'm down with
Talking
that.
about Pike's background, I think I did a rewatch of the Menagerie, the 2-part episode, this weekend, and I realized they never really say in the Menagerie why it was Spock was so devoted to Pike that he committed mutiny for him. And I
Right.
think that is the story we're seeing develop right now on Discovery. We're finding out in what way Pike is responsible in some ways for saving Spock's life, Spock's sanity, Spock's relationship with his mother. Who knows? But there's a lot that he did for him because he's going after him.
Well,
And
Actually, I can
and it
just tell you
makes
that
make sense because
Sarah and
the
Amanda just
manager.
raised mutineers.
Well, yeah.
There you go.
with Alex Kurtzman,
They were the rare Vulcan pirates of.
what Alex Kurtzman said in his sit down on that Ready Room after show last week was that their idea was because Burnham, we never heard Burnham or Spock talk about a sister, even a foster sister, we're going to find out why, and then on top of that, they said, okay, if we're going to have Spock, because it's about her and Burnham's relationship, that you kind of, because of the era, you have to bring in Pike too, and so, we're going to take the opportunity to explore how Spock became the Spock we knew from TOS, but there's like almost 10 years of stuff that happened that that leads up to...
Well, sure, but I think even more
I think this is a
specifically than just
pivotal
saying,
moment.
here's what happened in the 10 years in between, we're seeing a direct line between what's happening now in Discovery and why Spock makes the moves that he does.
Well,
And
right.
I mean, he was a goddamn major mutineer. He conspired.
He's
Burnham's
running the risk
mutiny
his
was like a
life.
spur of the moment decision, but his was a very well thought out plan that he worked on for weeks, if
Right.
not months.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and-
mean,
go ahead.
and he did, not only did he, but the other side of this too is that he did this with full knowledge that it would result in his own death because
Of
that's
General
the
Order 5 or whatever it was? Yeah.
well, it's the only
Death penalty, yeah.
the death penalty he left in the Federation is going to Talos 4. He knew what he was doing, and he didn't. And it was more important to take care of his captain because of the loyalty he has. And and I think Carlos is right that you've got a 10-year history in between here. But here's the thing about this story: this story connects his mother, his father, and his adoptive sister, and his captain all together. So I'm gonna have to go with Carlos on this. I think that this is what the impetus of why Spock took that risk in the menagerie.
Yep.
Excuse me, I have to make a point here. Everybody keeps saying, I'm going to have to go with Carlos. I'm going to have to agree with Carlos. What made Carlos such a bad guy in the first place?
Well, here's the thing: is Carlos is kind of the devil sometimes, and we know that.
Sometimes.
Yeah, before you joined us, Raul, we went through so much abuse it wasn't even funny. It's he's actually, but he's kind of mellowed out, but
Carlos
there were
is
some
the
moments.
worst.
I'm the worst.
The worst.
There's a reason why so many people hate him online.
It's true.
That's it.
All right, we do
Very
have to wrap up.
deeply hate me. It's wow.
You do have some haters, but we can at least point out to so many people that like you too.
Various reasons.
We should wrap up, but yeah. So
Hey, Dave, quick question. I got a quick question for Dave
Yeah, go ahead.
Galanter, my
Go ahead.
good friend.
Does
Dave,
he want to plug anything?
that's it. What do you got in the pipe?
I was going to
buddy?
ask him that, but yeah, go ahead.
I cannot talk about anything I currently any
God.
irons I have in the fire.
He can't
Okay,
even talk
never
about
Can
ice
you say
cream.
that
Sorry.
you have irons in the fire? Are there irons? Is there a fire?
I've
Are you
always
at
got
least-
irons in the fire.
Are you at least allowed to say what flavor ice cream your wife picked up?
Sam, what kind of ice cream were you eating? Chunky Monkey, Ben and Jerry's.
All right.
Okay, that's
That's a
on the
classic.
blog. That's on the blog.
I'm going to contact them and say, look, you guys need to
That
listen to
should
this
be the
episode
name of our episode.
and
Chunky
sponsor this show because we're plugging you through an author for Star
Right.
Trek.
Right.
Thank you for helping us on that one, Dave.
That's all right.
You
Anything I
might, you
can
might
do.
have provided some income, so we'll see. All right, and Dave, where if it is that you're not going to hide like Raul does, where would you like people to find
fair.
you if they look for you on social media?
People can find me at Dave Galanter on Twitter, although I don't tweet a lot necessarily. And I'm on Facebook under my name, Dave Galanter. I don't have a public page. It's my own personal page, but I'm not that personal on it. So you can just friend me there.
You can also Google him, and it'll tell you all the books he wrote. I've seen it.
You can find me at simonschuster.com and through Amazon.
It turned out I actually read your story in the Dominion War Tales, and I actually liked it from what I recall. It was a while ago.
Well, you don't have to be
I think I liked yours better than the one David Mack wrote, and that's saying a lot, because I love
that is saying a lot.
Yeah, because I love the Calhoun stories there.
I love Mac.
Yeah, I do too. Carlos, where can people find you?
I am on Twitter at cpedraza. I'm also on Twitter at AxeMonitor and axemonitor.com on the web and the Axe Monitor Facebook group.
And John?
As usual, the X-Men Facebook group, causing trouble. And in my
all kinds of trouble.
Without question. And in my Star Trek room without pants, as usual. Thank you.
But do you have underwear?
I don't think they want to necessarily go there to find you.
That is confidential. I cannot talk about whether or not I have underwear or don't. I'm under.
Oh, you Dave Galanter copier.
And well, I know nobody. You don't want anybody to know, and people don't.
It's not that I don't want anybody to know. It's that I don't think anybody's going to reach out to me. So it's not a point.
Oh,
all I do is make quippy comments
I will.
here.
I will.
Oh, I know you will.
You got one fan.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
And I want to thank Dave Galanter for joining us for this episode, even though he had a sore throat. I appreciate him struggling.
Dave.
I appreciate him struggling through. And Super Geeks is syndicated now on Subspace Radio Monday 7 Pacific. No, was it 10 Eastern time and 7? What is it? 7 o'clock Eastern. Pacific time. So, 7 o'clock Eastern.
I prefer traveling through subspace instead of standard space.
I know. 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern time.
You should write this down in advance.
I thought I had it memorized. But yeah, because I was trying to remember the 3-hour difference. So anyways, that's when you can listen to us live on Subspace Radio. It's subspace-radio.net. But if you don't catch it live, you can catch it in the review section, or rewind section, which is where they archive all the episodes. So, I want to thank everybody for joining us as usual, and Dave for being a special guest. And I'm hoping Dave will join us for future occasional episodes and Game of Thrones when we do that one. Because I know that we talked about that earlier.
I would love to. It was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry that my voice was
being
not.
with us, Dave.
No. That's fine. You
were great, Dave.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right. I want to thank everyone again, and we'll talk to you the next time.